All right, let's dive into gamification in education today.
Sounds good.
We've got a ton of research and articles exploring how game elements can really boost engagement and learning.
Right. It's really about making learning fun.
Exactly. Think virtual labs,
Yeah.
escape rooms, tackling math problems, even just earning points for, participating in class.
It's fascinating, how educators are moving beyond just using educational games,
Yeah.
and instead they're like woving those game mechanics into how we learn.
So it's not just playing a game about history.
Yeah. Right.
You're actually experiencing it. You're leveling up your knowledge as you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds really engaging.
Yeah.
But, I mean, beyond just the surface level of fun,
Right.
what's the, I guess, like the pedagogical basis for all of this?
Well, gamification really leverages those core principles
I
of
don't know.
how our brains are actually wired to learn.
Hmm.
For example, think about how engrossed you can get in a good game.
Oh, yeah.
That's because games tap into our inherent desires for challenges. Mastery, reward, those things.
Yeah.
They give you constant feedback, a sense of progression,
Uh-huh.
and those little bursts of dopamine that keep us motivated.
So instead of, like, battling students to do their homework,
Right.
we can tap into those same motivational drivers
Yeah.
to make learning feel more like, well, a game.
Precisely. And the research really backs this up.
Oh, wait.
One study that we looked at,
Yeah.
published in the Journal of Educational Psychology,
Okay.
found that students who learned through like a gamified math program
Uh-huh.
showed way higher levels of engagement
Mhm.
and knowledge retention compared to, traditional methods.
Wow, that's really compelling.
Yeah,
But is it simply just making learning more fun?
right.
Or are there, like, deeper cognitive benefits at play?
The fun factor is a big draw for sure,
Right.
but the benefits actually go deeper than that.
Okay.
Gamification can foster critical thinking, problem-solving skills,
Right.
and even encourage collaboration and communication.
Mhm.
Think about a complex problem in a game.
Okay.
You often have to analyze that situation, strategize, experiment, and sometimes even work with others to find a solution.
Yeah.
These are all valuable skills
Yeah.
that you can transfer beyond the game.
Totally, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's look at some concrete examples.
Okay.
One that I thought was really cool was virtual labs in science education.
Oh, yeah. Virtual labs offer a safe and engaging way for students to explore concepts
Yeah.
that might be too dangerous or expensive or even impossible
Uh-huh.
to actually experience in a traditional classroom setting.
Right. It's like, imagine dissecting a frog,
Right.
but
Yeah.
virtually,
Exactly.
without the mess.
And ethical concerns.
Yeah, exactly. Or conducting a chemistry experiment with
Yeah.
volatile substances, but it's all in a safe virtual environment.
It's amazing.
And these virtual labs aren't just like passive simulations. They
Yeah.
incorporate those game elements like challenges, puzzles,
Yeah.
even points for like accuracy and efficiency.
It's not just about observing, it's about actively participating
Yeah.
and problem solving.
Yeah.
And those gamified elements
Yeah.
provide that extra layer of engagement and motivation.
Okay, so like, for instance,
Yeah.
what would be an example?
One source detailed a virtual lab where students had to actually diagnose and treat a virtual patient.
Oh, wow.
They earned points for the correct diagnoses,
Huh?
appropriate treatments, and even for communicating effectively with their virtual colleagues.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
It's like blending real-world skills
Yeah.
with that game-like structure.
exactly.
And speaking of real-world applications,
Yeah.
I was fascinated by the rise of language learning platforms that use gamification
Yeah.
to make learning a new language, like an adventure.
Right. Platforms like Duolingo and Babbel
Yes.
have really changed how we learn languages by incorporating these game mechanics like points, badges, leaderboards, and even storylines. Instead of rote memorization, you're going through levels, unlocking challenges, and competing with friends, all while learning valuable language skills.
It's crazy how something as simple as, like, memorizing vocabulary
Yeah,
can be transformed into such an engaging experience.
that's true.
It's like learning a language has become a quest.
Right. A journey. And that sense of journey and progression
Yeah.
is key to effective gamification.
Okay.
We looked at a study on gamification in corporate training,
Mm-hmm.
and it found that employees were more likely to complete those training modules
Right.
and retain the information
Right.
when they included game-like elements.
Like what?
Like levels, checkpoints, and a clear sense of progress towards a goal.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
We, as humans, we're driven by a sense of accomplishment.
Totally.
That feeling of leveling up,
It's very motivating.
achieving something.
Exactly, and that's why it's important to design gamified learning experiences
Okay.
that provide a clear path for progression with regular feedback, milestones, and rewards
Yeah.
that acknowledge the learner's accomplishments.
So it's not just about, like, throwing on a few badges and
Yeah.
calling it gamification.
Definitely not.
There's a real art and science to this,
There is.
to designing these experiences effectively.
Absolutely. It's about understanding how people are motivated,
Mm.
the principles of game design,
Okay.
and most importantly, what are the learning goals you're trying to achieve?
Let's get into the different types of gamification
Okay.
that educators are using.
Right.
I've heard, things like points-based systems, narrative-driven games,
Right.
simulation-based learning, all that.
Yeah.
What are the key, I guess, like, distinctions between those, and what are, like, the benefits and drawbacks of each approach?
So a points-based system is probably the most common
Okay.
and easiest one to implement.
Right.
It involves awarding points for, completing tasks, answering questions correctly,
Yeah.
exhibiting those desired behaviors.
Think of it like a digital sticker chart
Uh-huh.
where points can be accumulated and maybe even exchanged for rewards.
That makes sense, but wouldn't that risk becoming too focused on the reward rather than the actual learning?
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
It's crucial to make sure that point system is designed well.
Okay.
It's not just some random add-on.
Right.
The points should feel meaningful, tied directly to what you're trying to teach,
Yeah.
and maybe even phased out over time
Okay.
as that intrinsic motivation takes hold.
So it's like using points as a scaffold to
Yeah.
build towards a deeper engagement with the
100%.
subject itself.
Exactly.
What about narrative-driven games?
Yeah.
I imagine those have a very different feel.
Narrative-driven gamification leverages the power of storytelling
Okay.
to create an immersive learning experience.
Okay.
Imagine a history lesson transformed into a quest
Uh-huh.
where students have to uncover clues, solve puzzles, and make choices that shape the story.
All while learning those historical facts and concepts.
It sounds like a really interesting way to bring history to life.
Right.
Make it more than just, dates and names.
It is. And it taps into our love for stories.
Yeah.
We connect with narratives,
Right.
empathize with characters, and become invested in the outcome.
Mhm.
And when we're emotionally invested,
Yeah,
we remember the information
Right.
and apply it in meaningful ways.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, what about simulation-based learning?
Okay.
How does that fit into all of this?
Simulations let students experience real-world scenarios,
Yeah?
but in a safe environment.
Okay.
Think of flight simulators
Oh, yeah.
or virtual surgery platforms.
Right.
These simulations often use game elements like challenges, goals, and feedback to enhance the learning.
So it's bridging the gap
Yeah.
between theory and practice.
Right.
Gives students hands-on experience
Exactly.
without real-world consequences.
And simulations can be especially helpful
Right.
for teaching complex skills that are hard to grasp through traditional methods. They allow for experimentation and risk-taking
Right.
and learning from those mistakes.
In a low-stakes environment,
Yeah.
it's super valuable when dealing with subjects that have real-world implications.
It is.
Okay, we've talked about the different types of gamification and
Yeah.
some really interesting examples.
Right.
But for educators looking to implement this in their own classrooms,
Right.
what are some, key strategies to do this effectively?
Well, first, you got to define those learning objectives.
Right.
What are you actually trying to cultivate?
Yeah.
The game elements should always support those goals,
Right.
not distract from them.
So it's about using gamification as a tool,
Exactly.
not a gimmick.
Yeah, it's like using a spice to enhance the flavor of a dish, not overpower it.
I like that. Yeah. It's about, finding the right balance.
Exactly. Another key strategy is to personalize the experience, just
Yeah.
like in games. Huh?
Different learners respond to different types of challenges and rewards.
Yeah.
Some might be motivated by competition,
Right.
others by collaboration, others by a sense of mastery.
It's not a one-size-fits-all.
Definitely not.
So how can educators tailor gamification to, individual learning styles and interests?
That's where careful observation comes in,
Okay.
and being willing to experiment, get
Yeah.
to know your students, their interests,
Yeah.
their strengths, their challenges.
Right.
Offer a variety of gamified activities. Let students choose the ones that connect with them.
Mhm.
And don't be afraid to adjust based on what you see and the feedback you get.
So it really requires a deep understanding
Yeah.
of your students as individuals,
Absolutely.
not just like a class.
It's about creating a learning environment
Yeah.
that's both challenging and supportive,
Hmm.
where every student feels empowered to succeed.
Now, we've talked a lot about the good stuff,
Yeah.
the benefits,
Right.
but are there any downsides to gamification? There are some potential pitfalls to watch out for.
Like what?
One, as we've said, is relying too much on those extrinsic rewards like points
Right.
or badges.
Yeah.
It might undermine the intrinsic joy of learning.
So it's important to use rewards carefully.
Absolutely.
And like you said, maybe fade them out over time
Exactly.
as that intrinsic motivation develops.
Right. Another concern is that gamification
Yeah.
could create a competitive environment
Right.
that could be detrimental to some students.
Right.
It's important to create a culture of collaboration and support
Uh-huh.
where the focus is on their progress
Right.
and mastery, not just winning.
So fostering that growth mindset
Yes.
where mistakes are opportunities.
Exactly. And it's about giving regular feedback that's
Yeah.
specific and focused on helping them grow.
Remember, it's about learning, not
Ah,
just entertainment.
That's the key.
We've only scratched the surface here.
We have.
Is there anything else important to consider?
I think it's important to acknowledge that gamification isn't a cure-all.
Right.
It's not going to fix every problem in education,
Okay.
but it is a powerful tool that can make a real difference.
It has the potential to make learning more engaging, more effective,
Absolutely.
and more equitable.
And that's a goal worth striving for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it's worth pointing out that gamification is always changing.
Yeah.
We're seeing cool new developments in like virtual reality and augmented reality,
Right.
which offer those more immersive and interactive learning experiences.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about the possibilities.
Yeah.
Like, imagine students exploring ancient Rome in VR
Oh, wow.
or dissecting a human heart in augmented reality,
Yeah.
all from the classroom.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Those types of experiences can have a huge impact on learning.
Mm.
They engage multiple senses, evoke emotions,
Right.
and create those lasting memories.
Yeah, it makes it feel more like an adventure
Exactly.
and less like a chore.
Less like school.
Speaking of adventures,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the role of quests and challenges in gamification.
Okay.
How can educators design these
Right.
to keep students engaged and motivated?
Quests and challenges tap into our desire for exploration, discovery, and achievement.
Okay.
They give a sense of purpose and
Yeah.
direction,
Right.
breaking down those larger goals
Right.
into smaller steps.
Okay.
The key is to design those challenges
Yeah.
that are challenging enough, but not too hard,
Right.
and offer a clear sense of progression and reward.
So finding that like sweet spot
Yeah.
where they feel challenged
Right.
but not overwhelmed.
Exactly. And you got to offer a variety of challenges
Okay.
to meet those different learning styles and interests.
So some students might like
Yeah.
thrive on individual challenges?
Right. While others might prefer to collaborate.
Okay.
Some might love puzzles, while others might like more creative or strategic tasks.
Yeah, it sounds like designing these quests takes a lot of thought.
It does.
Yeah.
But the payoff can be big.
Okay.
Good quests can keep students engaged for a long time,
Mm.
which promotes deeper learning, critical thinking, all that.
And that sense of accomplishment they feel
Yes.
when they complete a challenge
Huge motivator.
can be a big motivator.
Absolutely. It's about building that sense of mastery and self-efficacy,
Yeah.
which boosts their confidence and motivation in other areas.
Okay, I'm curious about the role of feedback in gamified learning.
Okay.
How can we use feedback to enhance learning and keep students on track?
Feedback is crucial
Yeah.
in any learning, but especially in gamification. Games are masters of feedback, right? They're constantly giving you updates on your progress, achievement,
Right.
areas for improvement.
It's not just about a grade at the end.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
You need frequent and specific feedback to help students stay motivated, see their strengths and weaknesses, and adjust how they're approaching things.
It should be constructive.
Absolutely.
Right.
Focused on effort and progress.
And not
Not just right or wrong.
Yeah.
We saw one source that highlighted using progress bars and visuals to show progress.
Right. It's like leveling up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those visuals can be very motivating
Right.
because they give you that sense of accomplishment
Yeah.
and encourage them to keep improving.
And that feedback doesn't always have to come from the teacher.
It doesn't.
Right.
Peer feedback is also super valuable.
Yeah.
It lets students learn from each other
Right.
and support each other's progress.
That's a great point. It
Yeah.
builds that sense of community
It does.
and shared responsibility for learning.
Exactly.
One thing we haven't talked about
Yeah.
is how gamification can address equity challenges in education.
Yeah. Gamification can level the playing field by making learning more accessible and engaging for
Yeah.
students from all backgrounds.
Right, and with different learning styles?
Absolutely. For example, students who struggle with traditional classrooms
Yeah.
might really thrive in a gamified environment
Yeah.
where they can learn at their own pace, get that personalized feedback,
Right.
and feel accomplished by mastering challenges.
So it's about providing those multiple paths to learning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And gamification can also engage those students who might be disengaged or at risk of dropping out. The game elements can spark their interest, motivate them to participate,
Yeah.
and help them feel ownership over their learning.
It's about making learning relevant for
Yes.
every student.
It is. And that's really what gamification is all about. Creating those experiences that are engaging,
Yeah.
effective, and empowering.
I know gamification has its critics.
Right.
What are some common concerns that you hear about this approach?
Okay, one concern is that it might be too focused on extrinsic rewards.
Right, like the points and badges.
Right, which might undermine the joy of learning for learning's sake.
Okay, and that's valid.
Yeah.
So how do we address that?
Well, you have to design gamified experiences that balance the extrinsic and intrinsic.
Right, you're right.
You mentioned fading out the extrinsic rewards.
Yeah.
Could you say more about that?
Yeah, I'm curious about that too.
So the idea is to use those rewards, like points, as a temporary support.
Like a scaffold?
Yeah, to get them started as students get more comfortable with the subject and experience that satisfaction of learning. The extrinsic rewards can slowly be reduced or even removed.
So wean them off the points and badges.
Exactly.
Help them find the pleasure of learning itself.
Yeah, another concern is that it might create a super competitive environment.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Which could be bad for some students.
Especially those who are already struggling.
Right, or who just don't do well in competitive settings.
So how can educators address that?
You gotta be mindful of the impact of competition and design experiences that are inclusive and supportive of all learners.
How would you do that?
Well, you could incorporate cooperative games and team-based challenges where they work together towards a goal.
It shifts the focus
It does.
to collective achievement.
Exactly. And builds camaraderie and shared learning.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's also important to emphasize individual progress, not just winning.
Create an environment where everyone feels supported.
And challenged, where mistakes are seen as opportunities and everyone has a chance to succeed.
Are there any other potential pitfalls?
Well, gamification can be distracting or even addictive if it's not done right. You need clear boundaries, guidelines for tech use, and make sure the game elements support learning.
So finding that balance between engagement and focus, fun and learning.
Gamification is a tool to enhance learning, not to replace it.
Right.
And remember, the goal is to help them love learning.
Beyond the game.
Beyond the game, exactly.
You've given some great insights.
Thank you.
But for educators just starting out,
Yeah.
where do they begin?
First, educate yourself on gamification, the psychology of motivation, and the different types of gamified learning.
So like build that foundation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then identify your goals, choose the right tool, and design an experience that works with your curriculum.
Okay. That sounds like a lot.
It can be.
Are there any, shortcuts?
There are.
Yeah.
You don't have to create everything from scratch.
Okay, good.
There are pre-made platforms and tools out there covering tons of subjects and age groups.
So they don't have to start from zero.
No, and there are also creative and low-tech ways
Oh, interesting.
to incorporate gamification without relying on technology.
Like what?
You can use simple point systems with stickers or stamps, even a classroom leaderboard. You can use quests and challenges with real-world stuff.
Right.
You can even tell stories and do role-playing.
That's cool.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated or expensive.
Right. It's about creativity.
Exactly. And being willing to try things out.
And the most important thing
Yeah,
is that human connection.
absolutely. The
Uh,
relationship between teacher and student.
Now, I'm curious about the future of gamification.
Oh, okay.
What do you see on the horizon?
I think it's here to stay.
Okay.
As technology keeps evolving and we learn more about the brain,
Yeah.
the possibilities will just keep growing.
What are you most excited about?
I'm really interested in adaptive learning platforms
Okay.
that personalize the experience
Hmm.
based on the student's needs and progress. It's like a virtual tutor.
Yeah, exactly.
Ah.
And I think gamification will become even more important in addressing those equity challenges.
Right, by providing personalized paths.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And engaging students who might otherwise be left behind.
It's a really exciting vision for the future.
It is.
Okay, any final thoughts for educators just starting to explore gamification?
Start small, experiment, and don't be afraid to fail.
Okay.
It's a journey,
Right.
a process of continuous improvement, and most importantly, have fun.
That's great advice. It
Yeah.
reminds me of something from one of the articles.
Oh, yeah. What was it?
It said, the best gamified learning experiences are the ones that feel less like school and more like play.
I love that.
Yeah.
It really captures the spirit of it all.
Yeah.
It's about finding that joy in learning, the excitement of discovery,
Right.
and the satisfaction of achieving something.
And it's about creating experiences
Yeah.
that are so engaging and fun.
Yes. That students forget they're learning.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Make learning so enjoyable that it
Mhm.
becomes its own reward.
And when we do that,
Yeah.
we've really unlocked the power of gamification.
You know, as we're wrapping up,
Yeah?
I'm feeling really optimistic and excited.
Yeah, me too.
It feels like we're on the edge of a revolution in education.
It does.
It really does.
The possibilities are endless.
They are.
Yeah.
And with gamification leading the way, we have this chance to create a future
Yeah.
where learning is not just effective, but
Yeah.
also enjoyable,
Wow.
equitable, and empowering.
I'm excited to be a part of it.
Me too.
This has been a really insightful look into gamification in education.
Yes.
As we wrap up,
Yeah.
are there any lingering questions or areas
Right.
that our listeners might find interesting?
One area that always comes up is the role of competition.
Hmm.
Some people think it's a great motivator. Others worry about the impact on students who might struggle in those settings.
It's about finding that balance, right?
It is.
Between healthy competition
Yeah.
and creating a supportive space
Absolutely.
where everyone can succeed.
And remember, not all games are the same.
Right.
Some are more competitive than others,
Yeah.
and some game mechanics are better for collaboration.
So it's about choosing the right ones
Exactly.
for your goals and students.
It's about being intentional.
Yeah. Okay. Another area we could explore more is the long-term impact.
Right. We've seen how gamification can improve engagement and short-term learning,
Yeah.
but we need more research on the lasting effects.
Does this lead to deeper understanding, skills they can use in the real world?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
We'll need long-term studies to see.
What about the ethical implication?
Oh, that's important.
Yeah.
As these approaches get more advanced,
Right.
we need to think about data privacy, algorithmic bias,
Yeah.
even manipulation.
It's about using gamification responsibly
It is,
and ethically.
with the student's best interests at heart.
We should also talk to students about it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Be open and honest.
Right, about its purpose.
Yeah.
And limitations.
They should know it's a tool,
Right.
not a magic solution.
Okay.
It's only effective when used the right way.
So transparency is key.
Yes.
Help them understand how and why we're using it.
And encourage them to be critical thinkers.
About their own learning.
Exactly. Help them understand different approaches
Right.
and make informed choices about how they engage.
It sounds like the future of gamification needs ongoing dialogue,
It does.
collaboration, and commitment to ethical implementation.
I think so.
Well, I'm confident that with careful thought and a focus on students,
Yeah,
gamification can keep changing how we learn,
absolutely.
making it more engaging,
more effective
equitable.
for every student.
That's a great note to end on. This deep dive into gamification has been fascinating.
I agree.
We hope you found it insightful.
We encourage you to keep exploring this
Yeah.
experiment with different approaches
Right.
and discover how gamification can enhance learning.
Unlock the potential of every student.
Exactly.
That's it for today.
Thanks for listening.